But it's interesting, right? EA Sports is offering anybody, hey, you want to give up your rights? $600. Be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's such a low number. But here's the thing, okay? NIL is BS. You're like, wait. Oh, yes, because NIL is pay for play. I've told you this for a long time. Players don't have some gigantic name, image, and likeness. And what they were able to benefit from before. And I understand you're going to sit here and go, well, Gottlieb, you're a hater. You don't want kids to get paid. Like, no, it's not what I've ever said. I've said that the truth about NIL and the value of each student athlete does not actually rise up to the level of the spending that each school does for them. And what previously happened was they pooled everyone's NIL, and that's how they sold the rights for, the naming rights to stadiums, the who carries your games, all those other things. If $600 seems low, here's where you're off the scale. And this is what we're doing for college athletes. We're actually doing them a disservice. We're doing them a disservice. It's like, I got it. You guys ever babysit? You ever babysit? Or you ever have your kid babysit a kid? My daughter Grace is, she's a cool kid. She's a bass guitarist. Many of you follow the show know. She auditioned for Belmont, which is in Nashville. She got accepted. She auditioned for University of Miami in Coral Gables. She got accepted. She's got accepted to a bunch of schools, music schools. She's got her last big audition is Berklee School of Music. That's in Boston, not Cal Berkeley. It's as prestigious as anything on earth for the music industry. And she will tell you, like, I don't like little kids. I don't want to have kids. I don't like little kids. I was a little kid, and I was annoying. I don't like little kids. But I have a neighbor. His name is Grant. Shout out to my boy Grant. All right? I think Grant's 7 now. And he is just the cutest little thing. Right? You can always tell when, like, his mom plays pickleball. His dad is a golfer. So when he's hung out with his dad after school, he'll like come knocking at my door. Mr. Doug, can I play video games? Because my son's got all the video game hookups and he doesn't have it at his house, right? And he shows up and he's got like a little polo and little shorts like tucked in with a belt. Like he looks like if Tiger Woods had a adorable little white kid, that's what he would look like. So my neighbors, Jimmy and Erica, they were going out on date night and they were in a pinch and they didn't have a sitter. And Grant loves my kids. And she said, hey, can Grace babysit? So I approached Grace and I said, Grace, would you like to babysit Friday night? Yeah, Dad, I don't like kids. Well, it's Grant. He's cute. He's fine. You'll get paid. Okay, I'll do it. And what happens when a kid has his first or her first babysitting duties and it's for a neighbor, and especially when the kid's younger, you massively overpay. Like they gave her like $60 and she did, and I helped her out. Right? Like I cooked dinner. Like I was really doing the babysitting. It was cool. It was good for her to, and she tucked him into bed, made sure he brushed his teeth, read a book to him. Like the whole thing was super cute, but it was like 2.5 hours and she got $60. And I'm like, yo, you massively overpaid her. And they're like, it was just really, it was great for her. We know she doesn't dig little kids. She did a great job. Everything was clean. I was like, everything was clean because I cleaned up. Like I want some of that loot. But the point is that while it was really nice and it kind of changed Grace's perspective on babysitting, it also skewed up her vision of how babysitting works. Right? Now, when you babysit or when you house sit or whatever, like for a neighbor, your dad doesn't help you clean stuff up. Your brother doesn't come and play with whoever you're babysitting. You got to do it yourself. And generally, you don't make, $30 an hour, right? That's what we've done with college athletes. Oh, $600. I don't get out of bed for $600. Like, hey, dude, that's the value. You're like, what do you mean? Well, look, if we're going to pay you all, we got to pay you all now. And you do the math, there's like 100 and, let's just conservatively, okay? Say you got 130 teams. I think there's more than that. Okay? And you have 85 on scholarship. And you got to get all their names. You're probably not going to list the walk-ons. Like, do the math what that works out to, right? Do the math. It's not that hard. Okay? You're like, well, I do the 8 and carry the what's it called, blah, 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 blah. What do you come up with? You basically come up with 1,100, 1,200 athletes, right? Now multiply that by 600. You're like, okay, that's a couple $100,000. Wait, we're worth way more than that. Like, no, there's a calculation there. They calculate how much they have to pay you. They have to pay all the schools for the rights to use their name. Like, you have to pay each school to use their name and their logo and their fight song. Did you know that? Well, I didn't know that. Yeah. Then you got to pay your game developers. You got to pay your marketers. Right? And then you got to make money on the game. Like what? Like, yeah. It costs millions of dollars to develop. It costs millions of dollars to buy the logo of each school, which is way more valuable than any one kid. Right? You got R&D. You got game development, you got marketing, you got the schools and using their name, using their logo, using their fight song, right? And then you have the players. And you have to make a profit. You know that thing that you don't know anything about. Right? This is a legit business. And oh yeah, by the way, on that you have to pay taxes on that profit. Like all these different things. And the calculated value they came up with for 1,100, 1,200 football players is $600 for each of them. And it sounds like chump change. And then you start to see the calculation and understand they got to make money on it. And you're like, oh, it makes sense. But what we've done is we've created a world where all these athletes think, dude, all I got to do is show up and I get a couple grand. I get a grand to go down to the bar. I have a car. They all have cars. I've told you this before. One of the reasons, okay, that Georgia football had these car accidents is these guys are driving $80,000, $90,000 cars. The kind of Jeep Grand Cherokee that was involved in that terrible crash where a couple people died has like a 700 horsepower engine. A college kid, regardless of their background, should not be driving that car. And then when you have a fancy car, when you have money in your pocket, when for your first time in your life, right? You got like people in college aren't used to having money. And then a lot of these guys, they have a gun because they have money and they carry cash and they want to protect themselves. And stop me if you heard this before, but it's probably not a great idea for a college student athlete to be carrying a loaded firearm thinking they need protection. And you have hangers-oners who also have access to said weaponry. And then all that money that you think you're getting, a lot of them are sending it home or they're spending it or hanging out. Like it's a fantasy world. And $600 a month is a reality world. It's just a lesson in economics that everyone skipped over, right? Because people investing in NIL, name, image, and likeness, is really buying a player. There is no ROI, return on investment, right? If anything, you know what NIL is really like? It's like buying a piece of the Green Bay Packers. You know how this works? We're on in Green Bay. What up to everybody in Green Bay and throughout the state of Wisconsin? By the way, again, a shout out to Jacksonville and Orlando, two of our newest affiliates. Thanks so much for having us. The Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. People believe that the Green Bay Packers are a publicly owned, publicly traded company, right? So here's what happens. When you buy stock in the Green Bay Packers, do you know what you get? Piece of paper. You get to come to one meeting a year, but you have to pay to go there, and you don't really have any voting rights. You don't get to change anything. There's no voter revolt. Like you're basically funding a team. Whatever you're paying for your stock, it's just raising money. It's just raising money, but it's not like a venture capitalist raising money where you get ROI. Eventually you get money back. Nope, you don't get anything back. You just get to say, I own the Packers. Do you? You have a little bit more power if you own one college football player, because teams sometimes feel beholden to you because of your money and because you went and you laid your resources out to help a team get a kid, and maybe he plays a little bit more. Maybe you establish a relationship with these kids if they know how to do it right. But if they don't play, if they stink, if they do play and they're great, you don't get anything back financially. It is burning money. It's taking money and people do it because they love their school and they want their school to compete. The same reason people buy a piece of the Green Bay Packers. They love the Packers. They want them to compete. They know, like, hey, they got to raise a little money. This is what we're going to do. But make no mistake about it. There is no ROI in NIL, and NIL is BS. And this is a simple lesson in economics. And all the clamoring for the EA Sports College Football 2025 game has hit a dead stop because players are saying, I'm worth way more than that. And you're not. You're just not. Might they get up to $1,000? Maybe. But the problem is, at some point, what's going to happen is the game maker is going to go, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. The reason they stopped making the college basketball game, do you know why it was? Didn't sell enough. Like, man, why don't you have the NCAA college basketball game? Didn't make any money. The same was relatively true with college football. Just kind of cannibalized the sale of Madden. Right? It's kind of the same game. You could run more option. You had, the fight songs. It wasn't necessarily as good as Madden, and it didn't sell as well as Madden. And when they knew the cost was increasing, when they knew they'd have to pay more for all the rights, for all the fight songs, for all the schools, and now for the players, they were like, not going to make it. And there'll come a point where college student athletes will come to understand, hey, look, the deal is maybe it ends up being $800. Maybe that's the highest they'll go. They will walk away. You know why? Because they're a business, and businesses have to make money. They don't do it out of the goodness of their heart. They don't go like, we're going to make this video game and pay hundreds of millions of dollars for the right to use the Texas logo and the Texas fight song and the Alabama fight song and the Notre Dame fight song and use the Golden Dome. And then we're going to pay, whatever we're going to pay to each student athlete or whatever. Like, at some point, you're just going to go, you know what? It costs too much. We can't do it. That's a business. That's how it works. Okay? It ain't show friends. It's show business. They don't care. Nor should they. And we are doing our college athletes a disservice because if they don't learn the lesson now, you know when they're going to learn the lesson? Second their eligibility's up. Imagine yourself, right? You're a college football player, you're a pretty good one, and you're making like $200,000. Some of these kids make $200,000. Now, it's not really $200,000, just so you understand. Here's what they do. They take your Pell Grant money, which you were going to get anyway. They take your Alston money, which is it's a government ruling where they can pay you like $6,500 a year, a college year, that's 10 months. They take what's called cost of attendance, which you got previously, which was supposed to bring you up to whatever other fees, whatever other things. It's like laundry money, whatever. It's like, it depends on the school and the location, but let's say it's $5,000, right? So now you're like 12, 13 grand in. And then most schools, they give you a car and you have to pay $500 a month for the car, but then because they say they're giving you a car, they calculate that value as part of your package. Anyway, you think you're making $200,000 a year. And then you get done and you're not playing in the NFL. Anybody else have a entry-level job out of college that makes $200,000 a year? Anybody? Right. But I guarantee what will happen is a lot of these athletes will hit the market for a real job, and companies like Stryker, which I always use, they do medical device sales. They'll want to hire you. They're like, how much do you make? Well, it's $85,000 base pay, and then you can make, whoa, $85,000. I was playing football for $200,000 at the University of Tennessee. Like, hey, guess what, buddy? This ain't football. This is a business. This is what we offer. And we'd love to have you because you got a great name in the market. But if it doesn't make sense for us, we'll walk. We'll find somebody who will. That's business. Just like my daughter, who, if she wants to have another babysitting gig, it ain't going to be paid as handsomely as it was for the young lad Grant next door. Dad's not going to help her. Hayes isn't going to be there to play with the dude. And the payment is not going to be $30 an hour. We are actually setting people up for failure. Even with their short-term success, it's short-lived with NIL.